Happy Friday, guys. It's another episode of Nick at Night, the non-spoilery review of the books you read this week, September 1st, 2021. Let's get into it. Stay tuned. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Nick at Night. This is the non-spoilery review of the books you read on September 1st, 2021. Got a decent stack of them, like always. We're just going to hang out tonight. We are going to be drinking our coffee. This is I turned myself into a Morty mug. Got to stay awake for these late night reviews. As always, we're going to start over with the big two. One of the best books, I think, of the week, Dark Ages #1. Who is this? Tom Taylor. This was quite a remarkable book, I think. So I don't really have a lot of experience with Marvel events in general. I've read a few of them in the past, but I think this one checks most of the boxes for me as far as like what I kind of expect out of an event, and maybe my standards are just completely off. So if you read this and you're like a longtime Marvel fan and you hated it, I'm sorry, but I really enjoyed this. So the perspective of this book is Peter Parker in the future, kind of retelling the story about how this all happened, and so he's kind of reliving the moments, kind of narrating it, and then we're kind of living through it kind of in real time as a result of that. So he's kind of going over, what happened in the early days, like hours before this event. There's this old ancient power that is discovered on Earth, and it's destroying the Earth. So they have to figure out what to do with it. They send their initial heroes in there, and they get kind of wiped out. But during the battle, Doctor Strange figures out a way to somewhat neutralize this threat, and as a result, it's completely knocked out through an EMP-like device, the entire electronic infrastructure across the whole world. So we basically have the Dark Ages. So that's where that comes from. Pretty cool, like Strike Force team that they send down in there. I think it's kind of funny to see what happens. It had like a King in Black kind of a vibe where they all kind of went in pretty cocky, and then they all learned pretty quickly that, holy crap, we're kind of in over our heads. Really interesting. I love the art. I love how the action is shown in this book. I enjoyed the villain. I enjoyed the threat. I enjoyed a lot of the paneling. There was some real emotional moments in here from characters that I really don't know much about. So it's really kind of interesting to see, their plan, see how it kind of failed, see what their backup plans were, how all the different characters kind of reacted to it. And it kind of touches base with a lot of the people, the Avengers, the X-Men, Apocalypse, Peter and all his friends and family, right? So I thought it was a really interesting book. Check out Dark Ages #1 and let me know. And let me know in the comments if you've been a long time Marvel fan and you've read tons and tons of events. What did you think of Dark Ages #1? I'm curious to know, because as a newish reader, I really enjoyed that. Interested to know what you guys think, though. All right, we are going over. That was the only Marvel book I got. So, what are you gonna do? Some weeks are heavier than some. Okay, this is Fear State Alpha, Batman #1, James Tynion, the 4th, working on the Fear State. So this was kind of like your issue 1, issue 0. It's kind of setting up the conversation between Simon Saint and Scarecrow, and they're just kind of saying, hey, I enjoyed your work. He's kind of playing to his, playing to the side of him that kind of wants this recognition that he's never really gotten before. Scarecrow, that is, and he's locked up in Arkham, and Simon Saint's around there just kind of, smoozing with him a little bit, and kind of convinces them to help him on this journey to kind of bring Gotham to a state of fear that will help orchestrate the Magistrate, help bring the Magistrate online, right? And so, we all kind of know, for reading Batman, Scarecrow kind of have ulterior motives. And so, he plays along until it's advantageous for him to split off. And so, yeah, there we go. And Oracle's trying to do her thing, trying to keep communication up, trying to keep things calm, but Scarecrow has contingency plans in that area too. And so it kind of shows you the beginning conversation of how these two got together. And then you can kind of piece it together with the different Batman runs that we've been reading to kind of see where they are now. So there's a couple other stories in here, though. There's our Eden story, where Harley and what's her name, the gardener, something like that, are, you know, escaping down into Eden, where there's like this more primal version of Ivy, and they have some interesting altercations there. And so if you've been reading Catwoman, there's lots of different tie-ins. In Alleytown, there's like this more infantile Harley, or not Harley, Poison Ivy up there. So the plan is to kind of merge these two souls together through like whatever methods there are. They're going to do some Dragon Ball Z fusion. I don't know. They're going to do a little dance and fuse together. Who knows? The point is there's like a ruthless Harley down below, ruthless Ivy rather, in Eden, and there's like a more infantile version of Ivy up in Alleytown. So there's some plans to get them back together. So, you know, really, really interesting. And then of course we get our little touch base with Batman and Scarecrow, like we do in most issues of Batman, the main run. So lots kind of going on in here. Lots of different plot threads. Interested to see what's going on in Fear State. I'll probably keep picking it up. What do you guys think about Fear State so far, if you've read it? Moving on to DC. This is Marvel. This is Wonder Girl number 3. Pretty interesting book. This one, cardstock, which I really, really appreciate. This one was more... first off, let me talk about the art. The art is gorgeous. When Yara is running through the forest, she's running away from the monsters. She's being attacked. That art is fire, right? Let me see if I can get you a cool page. I know there's one coming up over here. There's lots of like weird advertisements too. A lot of these pages are dark. I'm not sure they're going to show up really well, but we're going to try anyways. So if you focus on this page here on the side, if you can make that out, the art is really, really interesting. And then you get to these other pages where you have the other ladies fighting. It's a whole different art style. Maybe not whole different, but like at least the mood and the coloring is different, right? So I didn't enjoy the flip-flop back and forth between the art styles. If I remember correctly, the artist was changing here and there. It wasn't always Jones. It was, you know, Jones and then somebody else. And so anyway, maybe that's still going on. I'm not entirely sure, but story-wise, it's relatively interesting. We have our we have our what is it? Eros. She just shot Yara with like the love arrow, and so she's like compelled to go with him and leave, right? And so she's doing so. He's just doing that to kind of get her over up in Olympus, though, to talk to Hera. So we're not quite sure what the plans are for that, but the next issue is part 3 of Homecoming. So we're going to kind of see where this goes. Everyone's really interested in Yara for different reasons. I'm not too sure what Hera is going to be doing with Wonder Girl Yara Flora. So we will figure it out though as we go. That was it for the big 2. Just a few of them. Before we get into indies, let me know what your favorite book was so far. Down below in the comments. What's your number 1 book of the week? I'm going to go over my top 3 because I don't really have a single issue that I really, really loved. I have several issues that I loved, but I don't have a single issue that stood way above everybody else. Going on to some indie books. This is Dark Horse Lucky Devil. This is issue number 2, Colin Bunn. Now, this book was really, really interesting. Lucky Devil was one of my favorite books of the week when it came out before from Colin Bunn. So I was really anticipating issue number 2, and it didn't disappoint. What I didn't see coming in this book was, first off, it opens in a very Watchmen way. It kind of talks about the filth of the earth and how it's riddled with everything. There's even a homeless man that says anything will help instead of like the end is nigh or whatever, right? And so it has a very Watchmen kind of opening vibe. But apparently our main character here, who's been exorcised of the demon, but not the powers, if you remember the first issue, he's still capable of doing all these things. And now he's kind of taken over a leader role. And instead of going to meetings and talking about his problems, he's essentially leading these meetings, which looks like they're like at night in a classroom or something like that, kind of teaching people like, listen, heaven's overrated, hell's overrated. We have to work on ourselves and everything like that. And so he's kind of developing this cult following. And because of that, a lot of people are getting interested in him, like Satan worshipers and things like that. And so it's kind of funny. He's becoming rich and powerful. because all these people are kind of donating money, presumably, to him. And it's really a big jump forward from issue number 1. Issue number 1, he's getting kicked around. He's being abused. His girlfriend's cheating on him. His boss hates him. Everybody at work is pushing him over. And now he's like this rich, successful guy who's getting the attention of all these different people. So it's pretty interesting. And he's even having dialogue with the demon still. The demon's still hanging out and around. But the demon's kind of saying, hey, listen, bud, do you think, I'm not the only demon around. You need to be careful. You think I'm the only one that kind of can come into this world? You need to watch it. So we're kind of getting to understand, starting to learn what the next threats are going to be, because who's going to stop this guy? Nobody yet. Can't wait to see where it goes, though. Had a lot of fun with that one. So that was Lucky Devil number 2. Going on to Aftershock, this is Almost American rather. Number 1. This was a hot seat book for sure. It really wasn't on my poll. Saw it at the shop. Went ahead and took a chance on it because sometimes I like these kind of stories where it's like spy kind of stories. You see like Russia in the background and stuff. So I didn't quite know what to make of it. So essentially it's just this couple who's fleeing from like a Secret Service type of an agency over into America. And they have this intel that they're going to trade for, safe passage into America and new lives and all this stuff. And so it's kind of the beginning conversation between them and the American embassy and the CIA and things like that. Like, hey, we need safe transport. We need to get over to America. We have some intel we can trade with you. Is this cool? And so far, the answer's been yes. There's they take a lot of weird opportunities here to presumably give you some foreshadowing of maybe some double crossing, and then they don't fulfill it. Right? They don't follow through with it, which I think is kind of weird. There's a couple different scenes here where it's like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll take you in. Go ahead and get on this boat, right? Go ahead and get on this boat. And then they'll bold some letters in the speech bubbles of the Americans when they're talking to them that would suggest foreshadowing, and they never execute on it, which I'm just like, okay, well, maybe they didn't mean it this time. Okay, now they're on a plane and the stewardess is like, well, you'll be the first ones to hit the ground or something like that. And they're walking through a door and you're like, shit, are these guys going to jump out of the plane, like leave these guys in this plane to crash? And then no, they just landed and they were just being courteous. Hey, you go first kind of a thing. And I'm like, that was kind of weird. Or like, here, eat this. You know what I mean? Like, this is a delicacy in America. I'm like, is it poisoned? So that was kind of weird. Art was very, very cool. I liked the art a lot. It did the gloomy panels way better than the bright panels, but I like the expressions. I like the paneling. It's very, very clean and crisp. The characters are very stoic, right? The woman's, blonde and beautiful. The man's tall, dark, and handsome. And, they're just like, they're just like models in their own right. You know what I mean? And they're just trying to flee to a different world. So I'll give you a little bit of a preview of a page here. So this is some dialogue with the American CIA agents. And so, Almost Americans, not awful. Nothing really happens. You just kind of hear them talk to the CIA agents and travel to America. So, we don't know what intel they have. We don't know who they're running from. We don't know a lot about their backgrounds necessarily. So, we'll figure it out. It didn't do anything to grab me. There's no hook, right? So, we'll see. Moving on over to Image Books, we have Firepower, Robert Kirkman, issue number 15. Hey, we're going back to the island. We're going back to the island. I'm bad at Firepower with remembering the clan names, the people's names, besides our main character. I think his name is Owen, right? But I have a bad time remembering the different clans and everything, right? So essentially our family just came home from overseas battling some people, right? And so now they just got home, and this new threat's kind of coming over. These different snakes are kind of like possessing people after they bite them. And so they've amassed this gigantic army who's attacking the homeland again. So Owen, wife, hopping in a plane, taking back off to go kick some more ass, right? So again, this book is never amazing and it's never bad. It's always like cool, interesting dialogue. There's actually a moment here between Owen and his wife when they're talking about the fact that his old love interest never died. She just disappeared, and he thought she was dead, but she died at like the height of their relationship, right? Like the most positive part of the relationship. And then she presumably died when she really didn't. He moved on, got married, had a kid. She comes back into his life during the last battle. And so it's like, the wife's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? This girl you were in love with, she died. It's not like you guys had a messy breakup and that part of you was like ripped out emotionally. You know what I mean? And so that was a really human, interesting conversation that they had. So that was really interesting, I thought. But as far as everything else goes, the action's really, really cool in this one. And it kind of leaves you always wanting more, but it never blows you away and it never disappoints you. So that's Firepower in a nutshell. 15 issues in. It's always steady. It's amazing that it's always steady. I don't know how Robert Kirkman does that. He never gets me excited about it, and he never disappoints in the same time. It's interesting, man. It's interesting. We'll see. So Geiger, number 6. This is Jeff Johns. So the last issue of Geiger, issue number 5, I somewhat enjoyed, but not as much as the previous couple issues. I think the reveal of Geiger's family in the bunker, which was probably issue 3, 4, something like that, was probably the best issue of Geiger that I've seen so far. This one is very, very close. This is your typical breakout, comic or arc in the story. Geiger and the kids that he's kind of inherited at this point, adopted at this point, go to a safe haven. It turns out not to be so safe. And so it's their escape plan, you know what I mean? And so they get a really really cool character introduction here. Junkyard Joe, if you guys know Junkyard Joe. Junkyard Joe actually shows up. He's mostly robotic. He's probably some kind of a radioactive guy himself, or just pure robot. And they kind of refer him to, or they kind of reference Junkyard Joe as maybe a model, and they have tons of them, like they're building an army of them. But he's pretty resistant to radioactivity, which is bad news for Geiger because that's his biggest weapon, man. You know what I mean? So it's essentially like Nocterra, like this book and the latest issue of Nocterra were both, we got to a safe haven. Oh no, it's not safe anymore. We got to get the hell out of here and fight our way out. They're both very, very similar in that regard, right? And so lots of cool action in this one. This one was very, very action packed. It was like every other panel was just craziness. And it shows kind of the final battle between the king and his knights and his men and his whoever and Geiger. And it was awesome. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And then they kind of gave you a tease about where it's going to go from there. And what I've liked is this whole story has been told from the perspective of these two survivors, like sitting around a campfire at night, wearing their little hazmat suits, talking about, hey, do you ever hear about the glowing man? Yeah, I've heard stories. What do you know about him? And they're kind of picking up that conversation again. And they've been sitting inside of this crater this whole time. And so there's some explanation about how that crater gets formed. And then we also get, there's still a whole society out there of survivors, and there's still military, and there's still, people that have shady desires and things like that. So, and is the glowing man around still? We get some hints to that. Where are the kids now? And so we get a little bit of a tease about where the next arc is going to go. So this is definitely going to go on for another arc. And I can't wait because I love Geiger. Geiger's been pretty cool. All right, so I don't want this to turn into a hot take show. But here's Spawn 321. I don't know what to say about Spawn. This Spawn is very inconsistent for me. So first off, hardcover. So props to them staying at the $2.99 price point. So Todd, you're doing awesome from that perspective. Art is always usually really, really good. I feel like the last several issues of Spawn, I only enjoy about a third of the book. And the parts of the book I enjoy is when Spawn's kicking ass and interrogating people and, talking about his plan, things like that. When he's back at the bunker with his other allies and like yelling at people and you guys don't understand, that's all boring crap. There's some really cool moments in here. He finds another guy. I mean, the last few issues, he goes out, finds a guy, gets information from them, goes back to the base and yells at his allies. That's been the last few issues. This issue is no different. But the best parts of this is when he's finding the guy and interrogating him and getting the secrets that he's looking for, getting the files, right? To kind of piece together this giant mystery of all these different people trying to take over heaven and hell and whatnot. And so this guy that he hunts down has a really cool, interesting, compelling story. He's a bad dude. Spawn uncovers some nasty shit that he's been getting into. And Todd really makes you feel for the characters that you find during these moments. And you keep getting these little flashes of Wanda coming in here, like really, really messing with him, really, really messing with his head. And it was interesting. Everything else in this thing was bad. Everything else was bad. About a third of this book is good, or half. And it's always when Spawn is interrogating and trying to get more answers. And I wish it was just that kind of storytelling, that kind of art and compassion and depth throughout the whole issue. But it's not. And it hasn't been for a long time. And when I say a long time, I'm saying for the last like 10 issues maybe. So, because I picked up Spawn relatively recently after 300, something, 306, something like that. Spawn, I'm going to keep getting the main run. I'm probably not going to, I got King Spawn #1. I haven't even read it yet. My excitement level is just not there for all the different spinoffs of Spawn. I'm kind of struggling through the main run. So I don't know. I really need some people to help build up the hype. So if you've been reading the other Spawns, I read Spawn Universe, haven't read King yet. I know Gunslinger comes out soon. So if you guys are reading those and I'm not, and they're way better than the main run, you got to let me know. Because I want to like Spawn because he's cool and I have a lot of history with him growing up. So I don't know. Let me know. Let me know below. Having a little bit of a crisis with Spawn right now. Going on to Colin Bunn again, Basilisk #4, chapter 4 rather. This book was interesting too. So the last few issues we have our main character. I keep forgetting her name because they don't really use her name. She's been traveling with the powered individual that when she's wearing that veil, right? And when she lifts it up, she pretty much melts everyone's mind like Raiders of the Lost Ark style, right? And so she's setting up this trap. She keeps telling her like, hey, when are your people coming? Well, they'll be here tomorrow. Okay, cool. I'm going to set up all these traps like tripwires and I'm going to be loaded and there's explosives everywhere. And there's like spike balls that are come out of the tree, like Endor style kind of stuff. And your friends, your old allies are going to come walking up in here and I'm just going to take them out, right? Like that's the plan. It kind of goes that way a little bit. Of course, there's like a pre-army of like the worshipers and the followers of this group because this group is kind of like in resonant with the Maw and like the Maw's following. Like, yeah, I could go in there and attack you myself, but I have like all these followers that are just nuts over me. They're going to go in first, right? So I feel like they take the brunt of it. And then of course, some other people, some of the main guys actually get some hits in as well. So, I don't know. The action was okay. This book, I feel like Colin Bunn has something cool here, something special here, but he doesn't dig deep enough into the story and the characters and the emotion that he probably could with this kind of a setup. And because of that, it falls a little bit flat. The art is killer. We talk about this every single time. There's certain pages in this book, there's certain paneling in this book where the colors go more like two-tone, like three-tone even, and it's just amazing. And even the regular panels are not bad in this one because there's a lot of action and explosions and gunfire and fighting and things like that. And there's some cool lighting and whatnot. So they do a really good job there too. But I feel like he has content here that he could go deeper with, and he's not. And I don't know why. Probably because he's got 9 books and he can't. But I'm enjoying this. Just not as much as some of his other books. But Basilisk is not bad. Basilisk is on the better. If you had a scale of Colin Bunn books, Basilisk is toward the better side of those books. Okay, so if you're trying to think about some books to pick up from Colin Bunn, Lucky Devil, Basilisk, and the last book you ever read, I think that was a Colin Bunn book. Anyways, going on to the last book, probably definitely in the top 3. This is The Many Deaths of Laila Starr, issue number 5, Rom V. Absolutely amazing. Amazing book. So this is the final issue. So, without giving too much away, Laila Starr. Laila Starr is really reincarnated Death. Death loses a job up in the pantheon, up in the heavens, because a baby is born that will cure death. He creates immortality. And so she is let go of her position, bureaucracy, right? She falls down to earth, takes over the body of a woman who committed suicide earlier that day, Laila Starr, and is living inside of her body. She has the opportunity to meet the child in issue number 1, and it's just a baby at this point. Obviously hasn't invented death yet, is still an infant in the hospital, and decides not to kill him. And through a series of unfortunate events, Laila Starr ends up dying. And every time she dies, decades will go by. 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, things like that. Every time she wakes back up, she's greeted by the god of life, who's on the planet, and he's like, you died, but like 15 years has passed. He's not a baby anymore. Now he's like a preteen or whatever. You know what I mean? However many years go by, she encounters him again. She keeps learning about all these valuable lessons about life and love and going on and things like that. And so then something will happen to her and she'll die. And then the next time she meets, he's 30. You know what I mean? And maybe he has a family or something like that. So, and then it kind of rinses and repeats. She always finds a way to find him. She learns some kind of lesson. Eventually, he kind of picks up on this pattern. They have a really interesting altercation in issue number 4. Issue number 4 was really, really, really good. Every issue's been really good, but I really enjoyed issue number 4. And so issue number 5 is kind of the conclusion of that story. She dies again at the last issue of number 4. She meets our character again, and he's kind of an elderly man. And so, the last time they saw each other, things didn't go so well. For him personally, he blames her for a lot of things. And so this is kind of the closure issue. She kind of goes into the conversation, or she anticipates the conversation. She doesn't know how she's going to handle it. She doesn't know how he's going to handle it. And things are just it wraps up very beautifully and very, very well. The coloring and the art is unlike any book you've read or seen, at least from my opinion. It's got this weird, lanky kind of art style. Characters are drawn, the proportions are a little bit weird. You get over it really, really quick because the line work and the paneling and the coloring especially are absolutely breathtaking in this book. So this is one of the best looking books I've ever read. And the story is very, very compelling. It's easy to follow. It's easy to read. And it's a book that makes you want to read it 2, 3, 4 times. And not a lot of books can do that. So I absolutely love this book. I'm going to show just an example of what the art looks like and the paneling, so you can kind of see what I mean about the coloring, hopefully, if it's not too dark. The Many Deaths of Laila Starr, Rom V. If you haven't read it, you have to pick this book up. I think if you enjoy indie stuff, and God, if you love Rom V or have read Rom V stuff and you want to get more and you haven't picked up Laila Starr, shame. Just shame. Shame, guys. So, one of my favorite books. If you don't know already, Laila Starr for sure. Dark Ages. I thought everything they did in here was really, really compelling. The villain, whatever. The villain was a plot. They needed him to satisfy the plot. And was it something that was believable? No, it wasn't a believable villain, but I think it served its purpose. I think they just kind of put it there and they're like, listen, just accept the villain. Okay. Once you accept the villain and accept the fact that everything's dark now because of the initial battle, just kind of get over that. So don't get hung up on the villain, I would say. But I think it was, I think it was interesting. And then I think the other one that I really, really enjoyed was Lucky Devil number 2. Lucky Devil number 2 was a big departure from issue number 1. It really pushed the character forward. It showed off his powers again. And the art, this is pretty dark panel. I don't know if you could be able to see this, but the art is really, really cool in the story as well. So I really like those 3. And then, if I had to throw a 4th one there, it'd be Geiger. So if you're only picking up a few books this week and you like the things that I like, it'd be Laila Starr, Dark Ages, Lucky Devil, and Geiger. Those are my favorite books of the week, right? So what did you guys like? Let me know in the comments down below. What was your favorite books, of course? What'd you think about these books? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Yeah, let me know. I like to have a good conversation about that. As always, like, subscribe, share it, hit the bell notification for future videos. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for watching Nick at Night. I'll see you in the comments. Take care.